But he was starting to feel like he was getting the hang of this. There was a way through to victory. He could feel it. He just had to keep running the path of destinies. With that, the book fluttered back to the beginning, and he fell into it. The clouds parted over the Isles of Boreas. It was time to choose. The rebellion was in trouble. Ravens were scouting for the secret rebel base. They needed a game changer. Pieces of the Sky Ripper had surfaced. Renato knew that using it could go catastrophically wrong, but he was sure he could figure out how to use it safely. Also, a temple had risen out of empty desert. The Iblis stone was hidden there. It was a dangerous artifact. It could corrupt its user into a bloodthirsty monster. Maybe he could find a way to use it, to take its power without surrendering to its wickedness. On the other hand, his old friend Lapino needed rescuing. Lapino was no game changer, but could Renato really leave an old friend to the Ravens? Ah, Lapino. Apparently, the Mad Rabbit had sold a Pegasus that he did not exactly own. Lapino always wiggled out of trouble, given time. But he was out of time. The Ravens had figured out that Lapino was a rebel spy. If the fleet reached him first, they'd string him up for that. Never mind the winged horse. Lapino had apparently managed to confuse the judge by arguing that he hadn't actually stolen a winged horse. He'd only sold it. But wait, where was the prison? The village was empty. Had everybody fled the Ravens? People were frightened these days. Just 2 weeks past, Renato had sneaked through an empty town and listened to the Ravens call that the Emperor knew taste in ritual sacrifice. When Renato went to the china shop, for some reason the owner was always nervous. Renato had tried everything. Zenobia had loved him to death. The Sky Ripper destroyed everything. The Iblis stone had corrupted everyone who held it. He'd never put much faith in Lapino. But Lapino was all he had left. He wasn't that good. Yet. You never knew where the road would take you, thought Renato. Sorry, mustache, thought Renato. The right jewel could really give you an edge. The wrong, well, it still looked pretty, didn't it? Everybody who wants to die, raise your weapon. All right. Ravens were landing everywhere. The advance guard. He'd better get moving. If they got to Lupino first, they'd eat him for breakfast. Or a snack. Ravens weren't picky. If they got hungry, they sometimes forgot to interrogate their prisoners. Even top spies like Lupino. Where had the mad rabbit got to?
For a moment, Renato wished that somebody had been watching.
Dirty and bloody, Renato finally reached Lupino. The rabbit was practicing his shuffle. Renato recognized the cards. It was Lupino's favorite deck. Oh, I thought you were in danger. I am. The ravens are coming. Oh, the prison thing. Right, yeah, see, this guard owed me 53 ducats, so we made a deal. They're very reasonable people, actually, for weasels. Now, I got a brilliant plan to kidnap Zenobia. We capture Zenobia, we find out what she knows. And that's the whole war right there. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Capture the Emperor's greatest general, who happened to also be a deadly sorcerer, and, oh, his only daughter? That would be worth it. And it would be nice to see her. He'd always had a soft spot for her. And he felt sure she had one for him. On the other hand, he could still get to the core of the Sky Ripper, even if he couldn't get the whole thing. It must have great power. To make the Sky Ripper, the Transcendent Emperor had wrapped an armature around the eye of a god. Bernardo had already let that armature slip away to save Lupino's life. But even its core, the eye torn from a god, surely they could fashion a great weapon from that. The core of the Sky Ripper? Lupino's excited. That's an actual thing that we could just go and get. You've been busy. He sure had. Renato told him all the things he'd been up to. Soon they got to talking about old times, about wages they'd won and lost, and scrapes they'd barely got out of. It was good to be back with his friend. True, The core was capable of terrible, uncontrollable destruction. But this time, he was sure it would work great. It's beautiful here, thought Reynardo. He was thrilled to be back with his old war buddy. He'd missed the mad rabbit, but something was not quite right. This chest contained a Vorpal sword. I'm just kidding. Vorpal swords don't exist. Ah, Zenobia. Now that he knew she still loved him, he wanted to go back to her. But that hadn't worked out, had it? Maybe it was time to find the core of the Sky River. There was something sour in the air. Like the earth had ruptured over something that had been fermenting for a very long time. Hey, who do I have to kill to get a drink around here? You? Okay. Reynardo felt wrong all over. He could feel an almost palpable sickness in the air. And if the land could have tumors, it would look like these monstrous crystals. The forest was quieter than it had been. There were insects, but few birds. You didn't count the ravens. Reynardo smelled sick animals and dying ones. No help. I'm getting a bad feeling about this, Reynardo thought. Maybe Lapino was right. Maybe he should have kidnapped Zenobia instead of coming here. Done beautifully. Where was a bard when you needed one? As he held the radiant icosahedron, Reynardo felt queasy. Dozens of tiny worms were nibbling his insides. It wasn't healthy to be so close to the eye of a god. How could he use it? He could take it to the observatory. The scientists there could tell him how to harness its ancient power. But honestly, Reynardo ached to get away from it. He brought the core back with him to the Farfarer. But honestly, Reynardo ached to be rid of it. "Tell you what," said Lapino. "I'll take it to the observatory. You attack the Imperial outpost." The Imperial outpost was a vital communications node. Taking it could shatter the Empire's ability to coordinate. And it would be full of secret plans and maps and maybe even rebel prisoners. It was a good target for a hero like Reynardo. But what if Lapino lost the core to the Empire? That could be a good thing. Couldn't it? Was Reynardo ready to take that risk? Maybe it was better if he brought the core to the scientists himself. Trust me, Reynardo, you won't regret this. I'll treat the core like it was my own baby daughter. As the Farfarer dived towards the Nexus, Lapino was jumping up and down with excitement. "Stop rabbiting around," Reynardo said. Lapino just stared at him. The moment the ship landed, Lapino leapt off the ship. As Lupino vanished into the wilds of the Nexus, Renato vaguely remembered Lupino had a baby daughter, didn't he? And he told her mother he was going out to get some Easter eggs, and he'd never come back. But Renato was relieved not to carry the core anymore. He was already feeling better. And who knows, maybe this time Lupino would get it right. And if Renato could take the outpost, he'd have access to all the Empire's communications in this sector. Right?
Once, he'd found a Superman issue #1 in mint condition in a jar he'd broken. He planned to keep breaking things until he had the whole series. Always a rush. This chest was filled with old concert t-shirts. And something useful. Renato caught his breath. His joints still hurt, but he couldn't feel the poison in his system anymore. He'd let the armature slip out of his hands to save his friend Lupino. Of course he had to let Lupino take the core. The rebellion needed every man doing his duty. And the rabbit would be no good taking on an Imperial outpost, right? Not quite enough, thought Renato. Renato took the outpost with a song in his heart. Soon, he was stuffing his sack with key messages from and to the fleet. Then the far speaker toad chortled a new message. The observatory had been sacked by ravens. Lupino and all the scientists had been taken to the mountains. Why? Why had he trusted Lupino again? And now the Empire had the core. Renato hailed the rebel base to warn them. But their far speaker didn't crouch back. Was the base under attack too? Who knew what was going on at the base? But he knew what the ravens would do to Lupino if Renato didn't rescue him fast. What are old friends for, if not to need rescuing every few days? Renato felt a twinge of doubt. Should he have gone to the base? No. Logically, wherever they'd taken Lapino was probably where they took the core, right? Oh, why couldn't Lapino have just, for once, not got himself captured? Was that too much to ask? He shouldn't be too hard on the rabbit. No, he meant well, and he was insanely brave. You have to admire that. Alas, they had to bury him in a bucket. Actually, several buckets. To everything, there is a season. He turned over and died. What else could you hook? The goat. Take the goat across first, Renato thought. But it was too late. There was an inscription on the platform. Balaleka lessons, with an address. This chest had teaspoons stolen from every inn in Boreas. Oh, and something more useful. Where were they holding Lapino anyway? There was no sign of him or the ravens who'd captured him. Just rocks and snow and the usual scouts. No sign of the core either. Was this a wild rabbit chase? Oh, trust Lapino to screw up even getting captured. But what was this rebellion for, anyway? Oh, Lapino was a useless goof. But he was a friend. If friends didn't matter anymore, what was the point of winning this war? He was practically sure he'd find something useful in one of these things. Ice walls only let you through if they knew you were cool. Renato thought of the choices he had made so far. Rescuing a friend and then sending him to be captured. Recovering a superweapon and letting it fall into enemy hands. Risking an assault on an enemy base for military secrets, and then failing to deliver them to the rebellion. Well, he was alive, at least. At the end of the mountain path, Renato came to a clearing. There was a campfire, raven feathers, and, oh, Lapino's lucky deck of cards. Well, that wasn't good. Renato hoped Lapino would not try to cheat his captors at cards. Ravens were much better than weasels at counting, and they had a very poor sense of humor. Then, he saw what he had hoped never to see. Fresh scraps of rabbit fur. Ragged and bloody. Ravens would eat anything.
By Crabthar's hammer!
Renato screamed at the sky.
I will avenge you!
The rebels had assembled their fleet. Ahead, the clouds were dark with Imperial ships. If he could reach the Emperor before the rest of the rebels did, maybe he could settle this without too much bloodshed. He set sail, and the Farfarer shot forward. Poor Lupino had never been a great warrior. The mad rabbit was good for a lark and a laugh. And a pint. The thought of ravens eating him made Reynardo furious. The way they were eating up the land. The way the Emperor was eating up the people with his new, bloodthirsty ways. He would make them all pay. The road less traveled, thought Reynardo. How intriguing. What was really fun was hooking yourself onto a moving ship. He had given up every objective to save his friend. He had given up the armature, the core, the gem, and even Zenobia. He loved Lupino, he realized. And now the rabbit was gone. A hero looks out for his friends, even when they're gone. He would send Lupino an honor guard of ravens to serve him in the halls of the Valiant. He would avenge him. His fault. They looked so breakable. Bloodstains out of his tunic. Finally, he reached the Emperor's ship. And there was Lupino, surrounded by ravens. He was alive! They'd eaten some other rabbit. "I'll save you!" he shouted with joy and flung himself at the ravens. "Aw, you shouldn't have," said Lapino when the last raven was down. Renato threw his arms around his best friend. I had to come. I love you, man. You really, really shouldn't have, said Lapino. And Renato felt a rather sharp pain in his back. As he collapsed, Lapino took the dagger out of Renato's back and wiped it off on Renato's sleeve. Why? You always have to be the hero. Brave Renato, epic Renato, super sexy Renato, and I'm sick of it. But I loved you. And you thought I was the idiot, said Lapino as Renato died. Oh, damn it. He lost again, and died. But there was Burning Ubar behind him. He still had all his destinies ahead of him. But he'd learned another true thing. Lapino was a traitor. Renato had suspected there was something wrong with the Mad Rabbit. But now he knew there was malice behind his goofiness.